Propel Fitness Water. With Gatorade electrolytes, zero sugar, and vitamins, Propel hydrates better than water to help you get the most out of your workout and get back to your best self. What propels you? Propel with Gatorade electrolytes.
This message is brought to you by Apple Card. Shave ice by the beach, a trip to the state fair, and a throwback flick at the local drive-in. They're more than just items to check off the summer bucket list. They're also opportunities to earn 2% daily cash back when you use your Apple Card with Apple Pay. Apply for Apple Card now and use in minutes with Apple Pay. Subject to credit approval. Apple Card is issued by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, Salt Lake City branch. Terms and more at applecard.com.
Ouch. This knee is killing me, but I can't stop training. The marathon is in 2 weeks.
Let's get on ZocDoc and find a doctor to take a look at that for you.
Okay.
Here's a review. Dr. Cardiff really takes his time.
No, I don't have time.
What about Dr. Charles? His patients say he can help find a quick fix, and he's in network.
Great, now we're talking. Book it.
Booked. 1 mile down, 19 to go.
Bring it on.
You've got options. Download the ZocDoc app today.
Hello and welcome back to the Cardiff Central podcast, where today we're picking a greatest Cardiff 15 as the 150th year celebrations get underway. And no, I'm still not saying the long word that they're using to describe the 150th anniversary at this point. Prepare for history lessons, almost certain disagreement, and somehow trying to shoehorn Dan Fish into the starting 15. Joining me on the pod this week, we've got Tony Esposito, back from his summer break. Tony, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Very well, thank you very much. And back from last week, Steve Coombs. Steve, how are you?
I'm very good, Dan. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. I've got a year older this week, and I feel it, to be honest, when I wake up in the mornings. Now, I described myself last week at the book launch events in my aggressively late 20s, but I'm not sure I can still hold on to that anymore. Right.
Mid-30s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mid-30s now, surely.
Well, I mean, 32, so very early days of 30 stuff.
You're not be in your 30s until you're 34.
We're going to get into our greatest 15, then there are one or two news bits, but we'll cover them next week when we're back to sort of regular podcasting. So the club launched their greatest 15 project a bit earlier this year with a panel of esteemed people involved in picking the team. Obviously, we've decided we're much better than them, so we're going to pick our own team here. Their rules, I think, were that you had to have a minimum of 3 from each of the 50 years of the 150. I've changed our time eras slightly, so we've got a minimum of 3 players needed from 1876 to 1950, then 3 from 1950 to 2000, and 3 from 2000 to the present. We'll roughly do it where we sort of put a name out each and then have a fight to the death, and whoever wins that has their player in there. But we will we'll have a 1 or 2 vetoes each as well, where if our player is somebody that we're not accepting no on, we can lock them in and go from there. I've got a few entries from people online as well, where I put it out on social media, so we can use them as a bit of a tiebreaker if required as well. I think, early disclaimer though, our team will not agree with your team. If you're listening, we might not even agree with our own team as we go through this. And if we did this podcast again next week, we would probably pick an entirely different team, because just looking through the names this afternoon, the amount of great players who played for Cardiff is too much to get into even probably 4 15s, let alone 1. So we will hopefully have enough. We've got a good breadth of history knowledge and more modern day stuff between us. So we'll hopefully manage to cover off at least, even if we don't put players in the 15, give them a name check and get going that way. I think there'll even be an argument over the fact I'm doing it 1 to 15 rather than like 15 to 9 and 1 to 8 or something like that. But we're going to go start up front with the number 1 jersey. And Tony, we're going to come to you first. Who's your loose head in your greatest Cardiff 15?
Gavin. I mean, I don't know what more you can say about him. He basically revolutionized how props were in the modern game with the way that he played the game in the loose. He was essentially a full open side flanker at international rugby. His scrummaging he got on the wrong side of some French restaurant from time to time, and that might have caused him a few problems. But he's probably one of the best props I've watched, and I will, yeah.
Steve, your loose head.
I feel like my role here is to balance things out and like pick a load of people from the 1920s and 80s, 70s. But the thing is,
You did get to watch them live, so
it is Gethin Jenkins, though. I mean, I could be like really arch and say, well, actually, Jeff Whitefoot or Howie Norris or Barry Nelms or something. No, it's Gethin Jenkins. He's the best loose head to ever play for Cardiff. He's one of the best loose head Wales have ever produced. I believe probably the best loose head Wales has ever produced. One of the best loose heads in the history of the game, like Tony says. Change the way we perceive loose heads, probably. It's Gethin Jenkins. I'd be surprised if many people voted for someone else.
Yeah, we didn't have, I don't think there was any mention of any of the props other than Gethin, and a lot of people, it was their lock-in, definite, no arguments call as well. So, yeah.
I toyed with
no
John
controversy so far.
I toyed with John Yap, but
I think I'd put Cliff Davis on a long list as well, who was a Lion many moons ago. I think we're going to start in a harmonious way and say Gethin. Hooker, Steve, do you want to start us off?
I'm actually going to go with John Humphreys, which might feel like a bit of an odd selection for younger fans because people tend to associate him with his coaching career and probably with the Ospreys where he coached for a long time, but in the 1990s, believe it or not, Cardiff had a really, really strong pack, and he was the heart of it. So I'm going to go for John Humphreys there.
Tony?
This might be a quick pod. I've also got John Humphreys. One of my first introductions to rugby, full stop, was him and Henny Taylor coming to my primary school and teaching us rugby skills. And we got some free tickets to go down to a game. I can't remember which one it was. And like Steve said, he was one of the best props I've ever watched. Again, he could scrummage, he threw into the line well, he carried well. He was a good captain as well, like just an all-round quality Cardiff player.
I've already been outvoted, but I had Alan Phillips as my my answer, which I think there was a couple of, there was on the responses 1 or 2 for Humphrey, 1 or 2 for Phillips. So it's obviously a one that maybe I think splits opinion slightly, but Humphreys just about comes out on top there, and obviously in this one as well. So he goes in as the hooker option for us. I'll start us off on tight head and go for the more modern version as well of Fau Felice. I think the record appearance holder post 2003, the longevity, the quality over that time as well. How just the cornerstone of a scrum that got progressively harder to sort of prop up as well as his career went on at Cardiff. But I think that's obviously an element of modern bias there, because I didn't have too many tight heads on my long list. The other one I suspect might be named is a certain Dai Young, but for that's a bit of modern bias for me there to put Felice in. Steve, who's yours?
Kind of tempted to go for Stan Bowes because I think for a couple of generations of Cardiff fans he was Mr. Cardiff. But I think I'm going to go with Dai Young because playing for Cardiff in 3 different decades, captaining Wales in 2 different codes, playing for the Lions in 3 different decades. I mean, you can't really argue with this. A remarkable career.
Tony?
I am also going to go for Dai Young, but with a shout out for Sam Hobbs, mainly because, again, he did it when we weren't. And I will happily admit that I've picked a lot of these players on vibes of what I remember.
On vibes.
Yeah, I'm sure it's the
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I realise I've done that now. But yeah, it's I forgot I didn't mention him before as well. So, but Dai Young, again, like there's not a lot more that can be said about how good he was, especially through the that Wales and the Lions tours that he went on as well. So
good stuff. And good thing about him is he crosses boundaries, so we can count him as either a 1950s, 2000s player or a 2000 present player, depending on if we actually need either of them, which helps a lot there. Second row, then Tony, we'll come straight back to you on. I don't know if you want to do two locks together, but who was your second row partnership?
Paul Tito and John Tate.
Any further explanation on that, or just those two people?
the stories that you used to hear about the way Tito used to ruck, where he was just all elbows and knees and just horribly niggly, just feels like the sort of player that would excel in the team that we have today as well. And John Tate, it's just a player I recollect really fondly from when I was watching. Might not have been the best player that I've ever seen in that position, but it's one that immediately jumped out in my mind as someone that I thought we could rely on week in, week out. So,
Steve, your lock pairing?
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously spent a long time thinking hard over the Cardiff second row selections. The ultimate position. Very tempted to put big Jim Mills in, but he didn't spend too long with Cardiff before going to league. Tempted to put people like Ian Robinson in as big terrace heroes over a long period, but I've gone with Keith Rowlands, who late 50s, early 60s British Lion, went on to become, I think, the first chief executive of World Rugby, or the International Rugby as it was then. I think he deserves recognition, and he is in the World Rugby Hall of Fame. So if he's good enough to be in the World Rugby Hall of Fame, he's probably good enough to be in our team. And partnering him, I've got Big John Brown, who was in the Cardiff pack. It's tricky because all the way back in the 19th century, they didn't really. You were just a forward. They didn't really discriminate between front rowers and second rowers. But he was in the Cardiff team first time we played the All Blacks, first time we played Australia, and the first time we played South Africa. And of course, 2 of those games we won. So that's good enough for me. Big John Brown, coal trimmer from Whitchurch, I think.
So would he be 1876 to 1950 then? Is that what
yeah, he'll go in there. Yeah,
Thank
God we got one. Yeah,
yeah, we are searching for one there. I think just to round off the fact that we've all picked different second row pairings, I put Bob Norster in, 2-time Lion tourist. Obviously went on to be chief executive of the club as well. But yeah, long time key man in that second row. And then just from reading up about this guy is I've lost his name now. Oh, there it is, Bill Tamplin. Immediately post-war, played 250 odd times for the club, and was also the goal kicking. Yeah, the goal kicking second row, scored over 800 points from lock as well. So I whacked him in. So I think we'll put Brown in to get somebody in from that 1876 to 1950 period, because otherwise there's obviously a few to come later who will be in that conversation, but we'll make sure we've definitely got one in for now. And then does anyone feel strongly enough to lock their second row person in? It's looking uneven.
Sorry, how many like lock options do you have?
You might be able to squeeze 2 out of me if I'm feeling a chow.
I want to lock in Big John Brown, because not enough people have spoken about him in the past 100 odd years. So I feel like we should.
There we go. And I backed up by a couple of mentions as well from people online. I think Rob Hill put him in his team as well. We're going to get Bob Norster in there as well. Just to whack him in. I think my long list wasn't great for lock, though, which makes me think that if there was a podcast of Cardiff rugby in sort of the early 1900s, they too would be asking for more locks to come over and get involved, which just the annual conversation on that front. Into the back row then, and I don't know. Just as a general starter for that, like I think there could be a bit more modern bias this one, Steve. I don't know. Is there not so many great back rowers from back in the day, or have I just missed them when I'm reading up on them?
No, you're not wrong. I think, I mean, like I say, part of it is that people didn't discriminate between forward, front row, second row, back row, if you go right back. And Cardiff obviously had, decent back rows, but they weren't like the thing you built the team around, like maybe we did in more recent years. So there aren't, I mean, on my own little list, I don't have too many back to the day selections for the back row. But
Yeah. So
sorry, would
what
you
is your
like
list then,
mine?
Steve? Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
Give us your trio.
So my trio would be Sid Judd, he'd be my 6. John Scott at number 8. I probably saw John Scott play, but I was too young to actually understand what I was seeing. But by all accounts, he was the leader of the team of the 80s that won all the cup finals. Sid Judd, try score against the All Blacks in 1953, died tragically young. By all accounts, was a tremendous player. And 7, I've gone for Martin Williams. Obviously a superb player, but I mean, he literally carried us for at least 5 seasons.
Tony, what was your loose trio?
So I went Dan Barr again because I absolutely loved watching him. I to the point where I styled myself on the rugby pitch to how Dan Barr used to wear his shirt with his collar tucked in and his socks rolled down, but still like the tops of it layered through. I also have Martin Williams at 7 because I just think he's the best 7 I've ever seen play rugby. And I don't think there's anything more that I can say around that. Number 8, I went Xavier Rush. But so I was off on a tangent, sorry. I was in Scotland last week and I bumped into someone outside a garden centre called Dobbies. They don't take socks as payment. And this dude started talking to me, and it turned out he'd lived in Barry for a little bit during the 80s, and he'd got to watch in Cardiff. And he talked about John Scott and how good he was, and talked about other bits and pieces around the team as well. So John Scott, I didn't watch him play, but from the people I've talked to from that generation, they just went, to have the captain of England playing for Cardiff at the time is just would just be unheard of nowadays, right? So.
Yeah, I think Nugget is a universal choice there. I certainly had him in my team, and I think
Exactly, he's ginger.
A little bit, yeah. You got to get a few gingers in. Obviously, I've overlooked Tito, so I've got Martin Williams in instead. But and it's bizarre because obviously in the last 20 years or so, we've had a number of excellent 7s, and but I think for Cardiff, certainly Nugget is head and shoulders above even those excellent players who've turned out at the Arms Park. So yeah, he goes in, and then I put Scott in my back row as well, though I had maybe slightly shoehorned him into 6 to get Rush into 8, although you could shoehorn Rush out there as well. So is Tony, I don't know if would you use a lock on Dan Barr? Are you that keen on?
He could never have played lock. He's too
no,
short.
as in lock him into the team.
No. Oh no. We obviously should mention Mama Molatika as well, who was phenomenal. And Owen Williams, who was superb. And there are so many back row players that we've probably forgotten, but were superb along the way. That we'll get shouted at by so many.
Probably be a lot of votes for Bob Lakin, I would imagine.
Yeah,
the least athletic looking man. If you look at photos of him, people who followed the club in the 80s absolutely loved him.
There's a number of those sort of players. So, like, you kind of look back on photos of them, and a lot of them look so old as well. They're like, this is so and so at 25 playing. He looks like sort of like a 40-year-old bloke who's turning up.
There's a lot of that. A lot of the people in the 80s looked a lot older. Like, yeah.
I trying to think. I had Stuart Lane on a long list as well as a Lion from the I'd say late 60s, early 70s, maybe Steve.
I think so. Yeah, that's about right.
But I think as we've got Nugget and we've got two votes for Rush because I also had Rush in my team and 3 votes, sort of 2.5 votes for Scott. We'll do a bit of squeezing Xavier Rush or Scott onto the blind side and
They can play a half each.
yeah, they can both wear if all three wear 7 on the basis that Rush and Scott are sort of somewhere in between 6 and 8. We'll go for that. But yeah, and I think with the back row, we've obviously had a lot of great players. I think we've had so many like cult hero kind of figures play in the back row as well. Just thinking like more recently, you guys like Ollie Robinson, for example, someone like that you wouldn't put in the conversation for perhaps for greatest 15, but in terms of just like contribution to the club, I think that we've had a lot of really good guys like that. So yeah, there's definitely an alternate cult hero 15, which is the back row has a really good conversation about there.
Andreas Pretorius. Who's the lad who left us to go to Munster?
Robin Copeland.
Yeah, him.
Yeah.
Did that amazing
just for the
dance
kit
routine
reveal
just for the kit reveal. Like, just bring him back for that.
No, we have had a lot, but yeah, particularly in the professional era, a lot of very good guys in that spot. Right, so that's the pack done, and I think this might be where we get into a good conversation here, because I asked for sort of just general locks from people and online of people who would definitely be in their 15s, and I would suggest that like 95% of the respondents were 9s, 10s, or centres, pretty much of people that they wanted to see in there. Where Cardiff's history, I think, is very strong. So let's go with 9 then. Tony, we'll come back to you for your 9 choice.
I guess it can only be the man with a statue, right, in St. David's. It's got to be Gareth Edwards. But when I initially wrote the list, because my brain completely forgot about Gareth Edwards, I wrote Rob Howley down. And then I went, oh, no, it's not Howley. I can't have Howley. It's Richie Reese. Oh, no. Maybe Jason Spice. Because I remember Jason Spice dragging us through games, and then my brain went, what are you doing? It's Gareth Edwards.
So, Steve, yeah. I'm interested to hear your take on 9, because I mean there was a lot of options. Tony's named a few there, but there was one head-to-head in particular which caught the attention online. I wonder if you've got a similar 50-50.
Yeah, I mean, just to go back to last week and the 150th book launch when we were both on the panel. I don't know about you, but I felt pretty awful when Gareth Edwards suddenly walked forward, because we'd been asked about our the top Cardiff player of the past 150 years, and none of us had mentioned Gareth Edwards. Which goes to be honest, goes to show how many great players they have. Sir Gareth Edwards is stood in front of you, and you completely overlook him anyway. So I feel slightly like I ought to pick Gareth Edwards. I mean, my late father always swore blind that Terry Holmes was a better player for Cardiff than Gareth Edwards, and a lot of people of that generation say that. Rob Howley is also a really strong pick, because I suppose similar to John Humphreys, people will now think of his coaching career, but he was a hell of a player. Fortunate enough to see him play for Cardiff. I'm going to, and if you go right back, there'll be Hayden Tanner, Rex Willis. There's so many. Bobby Delahaye. But I will. Oh God, I got to go for Gareth Edwards. I'm really tempted to go for Terry Holmes because I can hear my dad spinning in his grave. But no, Gareth Edwards.
There were a couple of messages or comments about Terry Holmes that I saw online as well. So it's I'd be swung either way, I guess.
Yeah, and it was hoped that I think Rob Hill and Mark Davis both put on that controversially they acknowledge, but that they would go with Holmes over Edwards. But yeah, I just think like it's maybe a safe pick, but I mean, for many people, he's the greatest player to ever play rugby, and so I feel like you probably have to put the greatest player to ever play rugby in your team.
It feels really
and you two forgot him.
Greatest player of all time.
Yeah. And you two forgot him when he was sat in front of you.
I did like frame my selection as a more modern selection on purpose because the gentleman to my left had picked ones from previous eras, so I went for a more modern one. But I like, yeah, there was the first thing my wife said to me afterwards was, "None of you picked Gareth Edwards. He sat right there." He knows he's the greatest. We're just giving other people a chance to shine. But yeah, we'll put Edwards into our team now. And yeah, I mean, I do watch some of the clips. There's some clips of Terry Holmes, and an unbelievable player. It is crazy to think that Cardiff had two of the greatest scrum halves.
People who played with Terry Holmes, they all say how good he was.
Yeah. Just yeah, and one of those players I think you could picture in the modern game as well, just with his like size and physicality and stuff. Whereas
the same is kind of true of Gareth Edwards, because if you ever watch any of those old games in their entirety, it kind of looks like there's a modern player just being dropped into like a Five Nations game from 1974. He was remarkable.
It makes you think how much better that Wales team could have then been if there was a full set of substitutes, so that you could say to either Gareth or Terry, like, give us a strong 55 and then we'll sort of hook you for the other guy with 25 to go. With that, imagine being a pack and like, oh, Gareth Edwards is gone, and then just Terry Holmes wanders onto the pitch with his size. Oh, no, thank you. But yeah, we shall have Edwards in our team. 10 then. I mean, this is one where you go across the generations as well, because there is a lot of very good players here. Steve, I'll come to you first on this one. I reckon I might guess who you want to put in, but you tell us.
Who you guessing?
I wonder if you might go Percy Bush for this one.
I nearly did.
Oh,
because if you're looking at it from a rugby historian perspective, obviously there's this long history of cheeky, skillful Cardiff and Wales outside halves, and he's the first one. He sort of sets the template. And then later on, you've obviously got Barry John. He's just one of those names that speaks for itself. But I'm actually, and you know, there's so many others, but I'm actually going to pick Cliff Morgan. And partially Cliff Morgan because whenever these little debates come up, people tend to forget Cliff Morgan. But people of that era basically purr when they speak about Cliff Morgan. He was the Cardiff danger man in one of the greatest Cardiff teams. Another player is in the World Rugby Hall of Fame. So I'm going to go with Cliff Morgan on this one.
Do you think his subsequent broadcasting career, and that he became so well known that he commentated on that great Barbarians try that Gareth Edwards scored, does that maybe overshadow his playing career in some people's minds? Do they think of him more as a broadcaster than a player?
That's probably true, because I'm old enough to remember Cliff Morgan being on the radio every morning on the weekend, and you know, his commentary. And I imagine the guy at the start of the Crowning Years video in his commentator role, rather than thinking of him as a player. But when you look back at his record and the opinions of people at the time, he achieved that remarkable broadcasting career basically through rugby, because he was a top player.
Tony, I don't know. Does Jared Evans make your list? I don't know.
He doesn't. He misses out on the very long list. Neither does Nicky Robinson either. For pure comedy reasons, Sam Norton might. Dan Parks, again, quite underrated for what he did. He moved us around the park just after my pick sort of left, which was Neil Jenkins. So I think they played in tandem for a little bit. But I used to love watching Neil Jenkins in a blue and black shirt. I went to his first game against Swansea and sat at the old St Helens, and he'd just come back from the World Cup. So which World Cup would that have been? Would that have been the 1999 one maybe? And then he played his first game for Swansea a couple of games into the season, and he just moved you around the park. And people talk like he always gets criticised as not being a player that was very fast or could sidestep, but he could, and it was a very underrated talent that he had. So yeah. But again, we've had so many number 10s, and Steve's mentioned a load of them. But Lee Jarvis was mercurial when he got the ball. Yes, and Harris had his moments. Obviously, things didn't go very well there in the end. I feel like I could just list 10s now.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot, and funnily enough, we've had a lot of good 10s in recent years. But I don't know about you guys. None of them actually figured in my long list for these. Like we obviously, like Jared, Patchell, Anscombe, they've been good 10s. But I think the quality the quality that we've previously had. I mean, it's difficult to. And I think another player we haven't mentioned, Gareth Davis, obviously of the 70s, not of, although that Toulon try was good, could get in by itself, but the original Gareth Davis, a very good player. I'm wondering, Steve, does Cliff Morgan count? Because I've just checked and he made his debut in 1949. Can I count him as an 1876 to 1950 player?
Just about, yeah.
Well,
it feels like gerrymandering, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, it does a bit. I had Bush in my team just to get 3 players in from that time frame as well. Do we think we can get 2 more players if we don't put Bush in? That would be my question.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, Steve's got some locks lined up. He's got some locked in names. I can sense them coming. I just from online names as well. We had Barry John mentioned a few times, but I mean, I'm happy to go with Morgan at 10 with a nod to Neil Jenkins. But yeah, I just think Cliff Morgan. You watch some of those clips of them playing in the 50s, and obviously, I think we'll get onto centres, but a couple of the centres maybe slightly overshadowed him in the play-in days as well. But you read about his, which tour? Was it a Lions tour to South Africa, Steve, where Morgan was?
He was the dominant player.
It's difficult to overlook the fact that he probably was the best fly half in the world at that time.
Yeah, so. and when Cardiff beat the All Blacks in the 50s, the game plan was basically run from everywhere early on. In the first 20 minutes, he basically single-handedly tore them to pieces by all accounts.
Let's get Cliff Morgan in there then. Right, centres time. Put them together because it doesn't seem like there was too much disparity between inside and outside necessarily back in the day, more left and right. But there's the list of centres. I had to go onto another line to get my long list of centres together, such as the amount of good players in there. So, Steve, do you want to kick us off with your centre pairing?
I'm not going to pick him, but I've got to mention Mark Ring because he was my favourite player growing up, and I think he kind of sums up a certain Cardiff style and swagger as a player. But I can't pick him because there's so many other centres to choose from. I could have picked Wilf Wooler, who was a sensational player in his day. I could have picked Dr. Jack Matthews. I could have picked Jamie Roberts. But as it is, I've gone with Bleddyn Williams because how can you not? The Prince of Centres. Captain Cardiff to victory over the All Blacks, and also captain Wales to victory over the All Blacks. Set a try-scoring record which lasted into the 1990s. And alongside him, Gwyn Nichols. And I mean, the Gwyn Nichols gates are still at the Arms Park, and those went up at a time where rugby players were very, very well, basically never commemorated in that sort of way. Played for, he was kind of man of the match when when Cardiff beat the Springboks in 1907. Tore them to pieces in the 17-0 win, which is a massive win for the time. Captain Wales against the All Blacks in the famous win in 1905. He has to be in there. He's a lock, in fact. Gwyn Nichols is in.
There we go. We've had an official lock in. Tony, what was your partnership?
Well, I'm quite happy to go with Steve's, but he mentioned Jamie Roberts. But I want to mention Peter Muller, who I used to love watching. Jamie Robinson the best of the Robinson brothers. He was superb, and you've got KC.
That's the thing we've come out with so far.
Sorry,
That's the
what
most
was that?
controversial statement we've made so far.
Obviously KC and Ray as well, but again, like centres, but for the dearth of outside centres we've currently got, looking back on the quality of centres that we've had over the years, why couldn't we have just had a couple of them playing now? Does anyone know how to make that happen?
I think if they could, they would. Definitely that feeling around the squad at the moment. What was your final duo? Sorry, Tony. Just
Blevin and McNichols.
McNichols or just Nichols?
Sorry, Nichols.
So you've signed Johnny McNichol and you've put him straight in.
Yeah, my brain. Because I've tried to say Gwyn Nichols and then stopped.
I mean, the responses online, there was obviously sort of a mix of Dr. Jack and Blevin, which I think, under most circumstances, like most clubs would have those two together, especially as they sort of came as a package duo as well. But when we got so many, Rhys Gabe, I think, was kind of a wing 3/4 back in the very early days, but it could slot him into that outside centre role. I suspect as time would have gone on, he may have been seen more as an outside centre. And then, I think Tony is right to mention some of the more modern players in this one. I think particularly, I always, if we're mentioning favourite players, Casey Laulala for me was just an unbelievable talent. Like, I think probably underrated in many respects by people outside the Cardiff circles as well. It's in the same way that Ray was for those couple of years as well. Like, sneakily one of the best centres in Europe at the time, but obviously wasn't necessarily playing for one of the top teams and maybe didn't get the recognition.
Our backs move for a couple of seasons was basically give it to Casey Laulala. that was our strategy. But I don't think we mentioned Frank Hancock either.
Yes, of course.
Is the reason Cardiff as a club is in the World Rugby Hall of Fame, because he changed the way the game is played. So a lot of centres to choose from.
But we shall go with Nichols as Steve's lock, and then Blevin I think probably gets the most votes as well between me, Tony, and people online as well. I think he just nicks ahead of Dr. Jack in that regard, which is bizarre that like the amount of names that our bench is stacked, by the way. Absolutely unreal bench at this point. Wingers then, also an interesting one. I think you look back on the history of the club, and I mean, there's this may be anecdotally, just looking back, I think maybe we've produced more Lions wingers than any other position, potentially. It seemed to be quite a lot through the 60s and 70s who were did one tour and then moved on, or other wingers came and took their places. But I think my winger long list was on a number of pages as well, from obviously some massive names back through the 70s, and then some more modern guys as well. Obviously, we've had a lot of prolific try scorers in the last sort of 20-25 years as well. Tony, who was your wingers?
I completely ignored people like Adrian Hadley, Tom James, Nigel Walker. I won't steal anyone else's thunder, but I just went Craig Morgan and Blaine Scully, because I'm just here to make Steve laugh. There was a try that Craig Morgan scored again that just sticks in my brain, and that's pretty much how I've picked a lot of these, is that where he sort of headed it over a player and caught it and scored. And how can you not have Blaine Scully in there for that try in Bilbao? And how much he seemed to absolutely love playing in front of the Arms Park and just stuff like that.
I've
done that deliberately to cause conversation. I'm doing it for the views, Lee. Views.
A clip of Tony saying Blaine Scully's the greatest ever Cardiff winger, and whack that up online, where the comment ratio to like is going to be high.
If he's clever, he does. Craig Morgan is the greatest winger to ever play for Cardiff, and that's the one that goes online.
Steve, I suspect yours might not agree with Tony, but I'm not sure on that.
I mean, he might be talking me around to Craig Morgan, to be honest. Craig Morgan is the reason I want revenge every time we play Bath, because he scored a try against them. It was disallowed spuriously. And also, Craig Morgan scored apparently the greatest try of all time once, and I've still never seen it because I was living overseas at the time, and the video that it was recorded on for me got deleted. So I've still never seen the try, and I've just heard loads of people saying how fantastic it was, and made Graham Henry get about his seat and applaud and all this. So yeah, Craig Morgan, absolute hero, but. Controversially, I've gone for Gerald Davis instead. Do I need to explain why I put in Gerald Davis?
No.
Probably not. On the other, I mean, he was an obvious one. On the other wing, tricky. You could go with Jonah Lomu, but then he only played a couple of games for Cardiff, so it feels like cheating a bit. Almost went with Maurice Richards, who went to rugby league when he was still pretty young, but scored a hatload of tries before he went on the Lions tour. As it is, I've gone with Codger Johnson of the 1920s, who scored. It was not a great period for Cardiff, but he still managed to score a try for pretty much every game he played, and kicked a bunch of drop goals, and played for not only captain Wales, but played for a United Wales and England team that played a special match. So I've put him in ahead of the many other worthy players. I could
What was his first
put in
name?
Johnny Williams as well, who was prolific in pre-war times, pre-World War.
What was his first name? Sorry.
Codger Johnson. Well,
Okay, sorry.
his name was
I
Tom
misheard.
Johnson, but everyone called him Codger.
Okay.
There's a cracking photo of him in the 150th book if you've got a copy, listeners.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also had Gerald as one of my wingers as well, so we'll definitely get him in. I think he was a name that mentioned a couple of times by people as well online. And then the other winger, I mean, like Steve mentioned you there, Chuck PL Jones in there as well as a prolific winger. I think obviously Cuthbert in more modern time, like he became ridiculed a lot, but there was certainly that period, sort of 2011 to 13ish, where he was one of the greatest.
Another name no one ever thinks about, Gareth Thomas. I mean, if you actually look what he did over his career, not many better careers than that.
Yeah. So go on.
Sorry, I was going to say there's also a conversation about who plays fullback, and do you have to shoehorn someone into that number 14 shirt because of who gets picked at fullback?
I mean, potentially. Yeah, Fish could play 14 if that's what you're getting at. Does anyone want to lock a winger on as out of interest?
I've used all my locks, haven't I?
Yeah, a little bit. But I think we are short of somebody else from 1876 to 1950 because we've got Nichols in there, we've got Brown in there. So I think we are going to have to put Johnson, because I'm guessing we haven't got an early days fullback, and I can't think of one off the top of my head. So we shall put Codger Johnson. Also, funny name. Like that's a good nickname that as well. I don't. How do you get the nickname Codger? Would be my question there.
Did you see the one I put in the group chat earlier? His
I don't think I'm not sure we can say that on YouTube.
Google Cardiff RFC William Jones Centre for the people not there, and there's another funny nickname.
There was also a winger called Cowboy Davis, who I believe is the oldest surviving Cardiff player.
Oh, okay.
Also a winger.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if he's a dodgy tradesman, I guess that kind of works.
Maybe he rode a horse to the games. That's why the bowls green's so nice, is because that's where he tied the horse up and it just grew.
Right, full back then. I think there's a number of players. I mean, I would put from in my team with again a more modern angle. I've got Benny Blair back there, just for how good he was in that period, 2005 to 10ish, or whenever he arrived to 10ish. Before that injury, kind of robbed him of a little bit at the end of his career. But yeah, he was, and also I think a little bit for the work that he did with Lee Halfpenny as well, who also then becomes into the reckoning. But I think, I think the way that Blair assisted in bringing in Halfpenny was nudges him slightly above for me. Tony, I know you were debating with somebody online, sort of a similar thing. I don't know if you've gone down a similar route there.
I would still pick Ben Blair, although probably the reason why I have a season ticket at Cardiff is because my dad loved Mike Raya and basically took me along because he wanted to watch Mikey Raya. So,
Steve, I wonder if you might also have Mike Raya in your team.
The thing is, if you talk to any Cardiff fan of my generation, Mike Raya is basically like Gandhi. Everyone absolutely loved Mike Raya. I haven't picked Mike Raya, shockingly.
Oh.
I almost went for Bert Winfield, who is another mainstay of that 1900s team. I almost went for Jim Sullivan, who played for Cardiff first as a 16-year-old in the 1920s, went on to become one of the great rugby league players. But of course, he left when he was still quite young, although he still nearly managed to play for Wales as a teenager. Actually gone for Halfpenny, because when you sit back and look at it, just what he did over his career, it's impossible to ignore. I think the points he scored, the number of times he played for Wales.
It's a similar conversation as we had with Gethin, I think, with Halfpenny. He sort of came along and changed what people thought about fullbacks, and played in a completely different way, especially early doors. Like he then changed how he played fullback as the years went as well. So he was able to adapt to the changes in the game.
I think a good measure of how good he was is that early on, when he first managed to get on the lines in 2009, he wasn't really known as a goal kicker. He was known initially as a try-scoring winger. I think that season, it was something like 17 games in a row where he scored every single time. I mean, there was a lot more to him than just being a goal kicker.
Yeah.
Tony, what was your deciding vote then? Fullback, I can't remember now.
I can't go beyond Ben Blair. And
here we go.
With
Benny, get in there then. I think that there will be definite pushback on no Raya. I think that's going to cause constant. We might be banned from the Allianz Park.
That's what we should call this podcast, actually. The no Raya, no Mikey Raya.
Yeah, I mean, as I said earlier, our bench is going to be unbelievable. We're going to have to pick a sort of. Well, we might have to pick an 8-7 bench to get everybody on it as well, but we won't go into the bench for now. So, just to recap then on the team that we have just selected as our or today's Cardiff Greatest 15. That's what we'll probably wake up tomorrow and wish we hadn't. But we've got Gethin Jenkins, Jonathan Humphreys, and Dai Young in the front row. Was it John Brown, Steve? I've just written Brown.
Big John Brown.
Big John Brown and Bob Norster in the second row. We got Xavier Rush, Martin Williams, and John Scott in the back row. Gareth Edwards and Cliff Morgan at half-back. Blevin Williams and Gwyn Nichols in the centre. And then Codger Johnson, Gerald Davis, and Ben Blair as a back three. I mean, it's not a bad team. It's not a bad team at all. Steve, do you look back on it now and have you got any immediate regrets on people we haven't got in there?
Not at all. That team, if we could bring them all back to life in the prime of youth, they would walk the URC.
Even against, would they match the Stormers' scrum? That's my question.
It wouldn't matter. Cliff Morgan, Gareth Edwards. We did pick Gareth Edwards, didn't we?
Yeah,
Cliff Morgan and Gareth Edwards and strings. It wouldn't matter about the forwards.
Just play around them. Tony, any names that we haven't mentioned or that you?
I've mentioned a lot. We obviously didn't mention Shanklin, who was very good in his pomp and. Don't laugh at me, Steve. Him and Gareth Thomas, in that centre partnership, they seem to work. They worked really well together for that period. I'm just trying to name names so more people don't shout at us. But yeah,
no, I think there'll almost certainly be a clanger that we haven't mentioned here, but I can't think of who they are immediately off the top of my head. I've checked my long list of names.
Hemi Taylor.
Yeah. But the only other name, Reese responded to us on social media as well, who wanted to point out Alex Finlayson at centre in the 70s, who was his great uncle as well. So there may be slightly family bias there from Reese's point of view putting him in, but I did have a look at his stats, and yeah, they are quite remarkable. I think it was like 250 odd games, and he won 200 of them or something like that, which is mad to think that we've kind of barely lost a game when he was playing, essentially. So if we get him back now, that'd be good.
There were like a couple of seasons where he was scoring he was scoring basically every game or something. So yeah, very nice man as well, but there's a long queue when it comes to
Yeah, he's unfortunate in the position. If he could have transitioned into a sort of back row / lock, he might have had a better chance. There's a few players wishing they maybe played in those positions now, looking back. But yeah, that's our team. So I'll put it up on a graphic online at some point once the pod's been up for a couple of days as well, so that we can really ramp up the people shouting at us for names that we haven't included. But until then, thank you very much, Tony, for joining me.
No, my pleasure.
Thank you, Steve.
Always a pleasure.
And we shall be back next week, looking ahead to pre-season, which is now very much on the horizon. So we'll have a preview of Cardiff's 2 friendlies coming up. But until then, thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.